Okay, thanks for joining us this afternoon for Firaxis Games live stream of this week. My name is Pete Murray. Today we're going to look at mid-game technology choices that you make in the game. And like everything else you do, it's important to have a context for it, for the choices that you're making within a game of Beyond Earth. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I've got a couple things I want to go over with you guys first. First of all, it's just 2 weeks until FiraxisCon on September 27th. We're all really excited about being able to host our first fan convention here in Hunt Valley. So thank you to everybody who's purchased tickets. For those of you who are on the standby list, I hope you got in. And keep your eyes open. We'll have plenty of reporting coming out from FiraxisCon that we'll be able to share after that. If you've got questions for either Sid Meier or the Firaxis team in general, if you go to civilization.wikia.com, they're collecting questions right now. The team from Wikia will be here for FiraxisCon, and they're going to have a Q&A that they're going to do. So Wikia is collecting questions. If there's something you want to ask, go there, put it in the hopper, and we'll try to get them answered as best you can. I'd encourage you to do that. If you're in the Houston area this weekend, there's a conference going on called 100-Year Starship, which is this pretty cool conference about having human beings settle planets permanently. It's a conference that attracts academics and industry people and professionals and enthusiasts alike. And I'll be there on Saturday presenting some information about Beyond Earth for a lunch panel. So if you're in the Houston area and that's something you want to check out, it's a really cool show. I would recommend that you do that. So keep your eye open for that as well, too. And finally, we want to congratulate our partners at AMD for 1 year of Mantle technology. They did a live stream yesterday on their own side where they played Beyond Earth. It was very exciting. They adopted a very aggressive posture towards the aliens, and there were consequences as to the result of that. It made it a little bit hard to expand, but they had a lot of fun with the 100 turns that they played out with that as well, too. All right, now, today's demo is going to be, and today's live stream is about the mid-game technology choices that you make. We've looked a lot at the beginning of the game, what happens in those first turns when you're starting to kind of feel your way out from the surface of the planet. What we're going to get into now are some of the critical decisions where you're going to be making choices about what path you're going to go down. I've got 2 saves to show you today, 2 different stories of 2 different settlements and how their technology choices are being shaped by the environment around them. So, if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and we're going to jump into the game now. So for this first one, we're going to look at a Franco-Iberian settlement that's founded here. There's a couple things to note out. First of all, that we're at 2 cities right now. There's our capital city of Liqueur and Prosperité over here. This is one of the map packs that are our pre-order incentive for Beyond Earth. This is 82 Eridani E. This is a planet that has no oceans. It has little tiny lakes all over the surface of it, some tectonic activities, but the whole map is one giant continent. And so the choices here get a little bit difficult. In this game, I believe I took a tectonic investigation satellite so I could reveal petroleum and geothermal early on the map. Hopefully I would be able to see something within my near borders, but it doesn't look like that's working out very well. And unfortunately, I settled very near some aliens. And early on, I had to clear them out from this area, over in this neck of the woods, because they were simply just too close to my settlement and impinging on it too much. So I've been pursuing kind of an interesting path here. Early on, I identified there's a xenomass resource, very easily workable within the initial tiles of the city. Down by Prosperité here, there's a smaller floatstone resource. Up here, there's an expedition site from where we were investigating the remains of a nest, but this is going to be a hard place to sort of pursue some endgame. However, it does have a lot of access to desert, and energy is a resource that's very useful for the contact victory, so that'll probably be the direction I head. I've also been kind of going down this bifurcated affinity path here. I've managed to gain 2 levels in purity. One of them was the result of a quest that came up, and the other one was the result of a technology that I researched that I'll touch on in just a moment. But I've also been pursuing harmony very actively because in this process of clearing out the nest near my city, the ability to return the aggression level down to neutral fast is something that's been important. So all of these aliens that you see that are around here, they were pretty mad a few turns ago, but they're a lot calmer now. This alien, on the other hand, is a manticore. That's mine, that I got as a result of an investigation of an alien skeleton. So I'm very proud of these guys. Everybody say hi to the Manticore. So at this point, I have an interesting choice. As you can see down here at the bottom, I have a free technology. Franco-Iberia gets a free tech for every 10 birches it develops. With the setup that I have here, if I turn on tile yields for a moment, you can see I don't have a lot of resources that directly stimulate science. And building in the city of Licour itself, I have a few buildings that are helping push out science, but I'm pretty much science starving right now. And so this free technology is going to be really critical for getting me back on the path to equity with the other factions in the world. I'm getting a little bit from a trade route. I can pop that up for a second. Bring up my trade route over. You can see that I'm getting some as a result of trading with the Slavic Federation city over here, but that's just a trickle, more or less. So by using Franco-Iberia's ability to unlock technology as a result of gaining a lot of virtues, I've been trying to push culture as hard as I can. So let's look at the text that I've chosen up to this point so you can see a little bit about it. I started out researching pioneering. That's an early game tech. From there I went to genetics, and in this case I made the choice to go for both leaf technologies underneath it. One was to get the Gene Vault Wonder, which does have culture boost on it, but would also continue to help grow the cities. So hoping to go a little bit broad here and control space as a result of having cities that expanded rapidly. But I also went to alien life culture from the paddock improvements. That seemed like that was important. There's a lot of paddock improvements I'll be able to plunk down over time with the resources that I have, and so that seemed important. Now I've got a free tech choice, and the question becomes, what choices do I make from here? Well, there's a lot going on in the world itself. We're going to hop out of this for a moment and go back into the world map. So the biggest problem that I see for the future is that I'm starting to butt up over here on the side with Brasilia. And Brasilia is not a super expansive faction, but they are very strong militarily. And what's going to happen is we're going to end up in competition for these resource tiles right here. This is, sorry for just a moment. This is a Resolin resource. I can put a paddock improvement on that, which will give me culture in addition to extra production and energy. And then there's Firaxite, a small Firaxite deposit down here. Now, even though I'm not pursuing supremacy as my affinity, I can use that Firaxite in trade. There will be somebody in this game who's playing supremacy. They're going to want Firaxite. They're going to be willing to trade for it. It'll be important to use that later on. Over here, there's some more Resolin. Probably have to plunk something down, but I can also see that the Kavithan Protectorate's starting to horn in on this side of the world too. So because this is a very open world, and in this case I've settled this river valley with these big open plains here, I'm going to be very vulnerable militarily later on in the game, potentially. So that's something to consider. If I start pursuing a purity track later on, I'll have room in which I can settle refugees from Earth, because I've got all this open space to work with here, as well as all of this over by my capital. But for right now, it's a bit of a bind. So, do I research a science, or a technology that will give me a better military? I do have some resources, some strategic resources that are important here. I got that xenomass I was talking about earlier. Again, I'm not quite committed to making a decision to go harmony or purity yet, so that might be useful as well too. So let's look at the text that I do have options to get right now. Chemistry is an initial technology that you can get early on. You can see it comes off habitation, which is an early one in the game. But I haven't expanded a lot out this way. Still, it feels like a bit of a waste to burn my free technology to pick up a tech that's an early game tech. Although picking it up for physics would give me the option to start working towards bionics. Bionics is great because it contains, among other things, the BioWell, which is a tile improvement that directly improves your health. The maintenance cost doesn't look like it'll be terrible because I'm in that river valley and I'm getting that extra energy for it. The Institute does have 3 scientist specialist spots on it. That would be really great for building a tall city with a lot of specialists in it. That would be pretty good to have as well too. And the Bionics Lab, which is available only if you have purity, also increases the production from Resolin and gives you additional health as well too. So this is a really good health increasing tech that I probably want to look at later on. Plus, underneath it, it's got leaf techs that are useful for me. Servo machinery, for example, gives me access to the battlesuit, which is Purity's first unique unit. And that does require a level 4 in Purity, but I'm already halfway there. And it seems like that's something I could push pretty easily. Tissue engineering does increase your affinity for the Harmony path, but it gives you plus 10 healing for all units, which is kind of cool. That's a passive that occurs regardless of how you feel about it. So Bionics is definitely something that I like to aim for mid-game when I'm playing anyway, but I don't want to burn my free tech to get it now. If I already had physics, probably picking up Bionics would be a pretty good choice. Chemistry doesn't seem like it has a lot going for me right now. My tectonic satellite didn't reveal anything near me, so the ability to build a petroleum well right now is not so fantastic. Because I'm on a desert planet, a planet with very few oceans, the recycler would be good for production, and the laboratory would be good for science. But the two available through the leaf tech, the water refinery and the petrochemical plant, these don't have any applicability for right now, so I'll probably leave chemistry alone for the time being. Down here, computing. This is actually a tier 2 technology. It's not available right off habitation. You either have to get ecology first or you have to get engineering first. So I picked up ecology early on because I wanted the ability to get the vivarium to grow better on desert tiles. And the ultrasonic fence, I was worried about never being able to clear out those aliens in time, having aliens from other nearby nests coming and wrecking my stuff near my city, and the omnipresent threat of siege worms isn't a lot of fun. I picked up alien biology for the worker miasma immunity and the ability to clear out miasma myself. Geophysics turns out not to be so useful because I don't have any geothermal resource, which is normally only visible once you research this technology. Because I don't have any of that in my starting area, as revealed by my tectonic satellite, this resource improvement, which gives you a lot of energy, is not very helpful right now. So I haven't picked up that leaf tech yet. But computing's got a lot of neat options associated with it. One of them is the missile rover, which is an early game ranged combat unit, very useful for taking out cities and things like that. The gunboat, that's almost entirely pointless on this planet. But the spy agency, the National Wonder, we talked about covert ops last week. I don't have the ability to initiate any on my own right now. That might be useful to have too. And the network. Well, the network gives me +3 science and an additional science from copper, but I don't have any copper within my workable tiles right now. So that's not something I need to prioritize per se, but it's a nice building to have. And then the leaf techs underneath this, one of them, transcendental equation, is required for the contact victory. This is what this tech is used for, basically. If you're pursuing that victory, you will need to pick up this technology. If you're not, that's something you can skip. Autonomous systems is a supremacy-aligned technology with the master control wonder. Now, even though I'm not pursuing that, the ability to get extra culture and an increased worker movement would be pretty handy to have, although probably not enough to spread myself out even thinner in the affinity line. And then the node is a tile improvement that heals adjacent units as well, which is pretty handy, especially if you're going to build it near a choke point in the map. But since I've got a ton of open plains right now, that's probably not something I need to consider either. But what I do like over here is this is where we're starting to get into some advanced technologies. So because I've researched ecology, I have access to terraforming, and because I've researched genetics, I have access to alien sciences and genetic design. Looks like my military advisor wants me to research terraforming. Let's look at why. The Gaian well is a big energy improving wonder if you have a locally improved source of geothermal. I don't quite have the purity level to do that yet, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Floatstone quarry, you do need this technology if you're ever planning to use floatstone, so you'll need to pick that up if you ever want to build any of Purity's unique units later on in the game. You'll pass through this point. And the terrascape. This is one of my favorite tile improvements in the game for just the sheer unadulterated utility of it. Extra food, extra production, extra culture, and this can be boosted by an additional one of these categories as the result of a virtue that you unlock in the prosperity tree. It also feels like it's really appropriate for a Purity faction. Purity factions are trying to transform this planet into a copy of Earth, and so having more terrascapes, more areas of the planet that represent growing Earth plants feels very appropriate to that. Biospheres is available underneath it. This will give me extra points towards my purity affinity. It gives me the passive of food carried over after city growth. Again, very useful for your growth patterns. And if you build a dome, which is located elsewhere, you will get energy from them. So purity really specializes in things like the terrascape, which is a single improvement that gives you resources across a variety of spreads. You'll see that's going to be a consistent theme with that later on. Alien sciences, that might not be a bad direction to go for me. First of all, let me start over here. It will allow me to build a xenomass well. And I do have a xenomass plot available in my workable space. I could send a worker to go start on that right away. Even if I wasn't planning to use that xenomass resource myself, I could trade it away. I could get something very valuable for it. Xenofuel plant will give you energy from xenomass. It also has trader specialist spots. So again, a building with some good specialists attached to it. And then Xeno nursery. And this might be pretty handy to have because this is going to help me get some of that science deficit I had earlier up and running. So that's a potential option right there. This looks like this is my strongest contender at this point. The two leaf techs underneath it are Alien Adaptation, and this one, which is Harmony aligned, gives you access to Harmony's first unique unit, which is the Xenoswarm. This is their real Zerging kind of a thing. It's cheap to build. It's relatively fast. It's not as tough as infantry, but it's pretty good for flooding the zone, as it were. I really like building this unit. This is a lot of fun when I'm playing kind of an aggressive Harmony approach to things. And then Alien Ecology under here is kind of cool because it gives my workers the ability to add miasma back and the ability to construct a miasmic condenser, which is a satellite that plunks miasma back down on the map. Earlier on in Ecology, we got the miasmic repulsor. I have one in orbit right now that clears miasma away. Now you can put it back. And later on in Harmony, that can be key to some of the improvements that you do within it. Makes your territory completely inhospitable to other people and very, very helpful to you. But just for the sake of completeness, let's go ahead and we'll look at this last few techs available to us: genetic design, the gene garden and cloning plant, and the ectogenesis wonder later on. All right, well, let's take a look at the gene garden. This only requires level 2 in purity. It does have both science and health associated with it. That would be pretty good. I'm right at, if we look up here, I'm right at 2 health right now. You can always use more health, especially as your cities start to get bigger. The cloning plant provides production from a developed source of xenomass, which I don't have right now, but that might be handy later on, and a grower specialist pod. That's not so much of an issue right now for me. And the ectogenesis pod. All farms produce additional food. It provides food and production within your city. This is a pretty powerful wonder to have. That would be pretty nice to have too, especially since I've also got the gene vault going for me now, which has additional food associated with it. That would allow me to maybe not focus so much on building farms, but on some other tile improvements as well. And then the purity aligned alien genetics underneath it gives you culture from the biowell improvements, which is a little unusual, but you can think about it in the sense that, again, keep in mind that purity tries to increase the number of kinds of yields you get from any given resource rather than increasing the resource itself. And then finally, additional science from xenomass well improvements. Well, this all looks very tempting. Let's go up and look at cognition for a moment. The NeuroLab is additional science from Firaxis. This is a very, I think this branch over here and the leaf techs are very supremacy focused. You need to have the ability to develop Firaxis in order to build the NeuroLab. The Holosuite's cool. This is Supremacy's version of its culture building. You get culture from Firaxis. You get artist specialist spots. It's pretty cool. This is where you decide that video games actually are art and you put people towards working on them, which is kind of cool. And then it also has the Academy tile improvement that raises science. So finally, underneath that, collaborative thought. This is a supremacy aligned leaf tech, and it has the precog project World Wonder. Makes your military units tougher in their territory, very useful if you're going to want to turtle up. This is also a a wonder that's very handy if you're pursuing purity. And the reason is, towards the end of the game, if anybody comes and tries to knock down those settlers from Earth who are trying to create a new home in your territory, you're better off defending on there. So if that's something you think you're going to need to do, maybe you've got a lot of warlike neighbors, you're pursuing a purity-aligned victory, that's something you might want to aim for mid-game in the Wonders department. But out of all of these choices so far, I really think nothing beats alien sciences. This ability to build the xenomass wells now, take advantage of the xenomass that's in my territory, get the additional science from the xenomass resource, this is going to start to overcome some of that science deficit that I've been going under in this game. So let's go ahead and we'll choose this.
When you meet a new neighbor, you greet her with heartfelt courtesy. So also will we get to know our new alien neighbors.
And now I'm going to be ready to continue at this point. The next step would be to bring one of the workers back from the area around Prosperité. It looks like I've got one who's just finished up his work. I'd bring him back and have him start building a xenomass well here. That looks like that's going to start committing me more down a harmony path, but maybe that's not such a bad thing. I do know out here in the midst of the world there are still plenty of alien nests that I haven't cleared out. If I am able to kind of raise my profile with the planet, the ability to have aliens passively wandering through my territory kind of provides a passive layer of defense for me. And since my terrain is so open and I'm kind of vulnerable right now, that might give me just enough of some time or disrupt an incoming formation and allow me to generate a response on my own. All right, so that's our look at mid-game techs from the perspective of this Franco-Iberian game that we have in progress here. Let's take a different one. We're going to come back to the studio for just a moment as I get ready to load into another game. So that was turn 93. That was standard difficulty and standard game speed. What I'm going to show you now is another turn 93 save, taken at exactly the same point in the game. Turn 93, but this time we're going to be playing as the People's African Union. And in this case, we're not going to be nearly as science-starved. But we do have a couple of other interesting choices to look at for our environment, and we'll go ahead and we'll set the story for that when the game loads in just a moment. So we're ready to go ahead and jump in. Oh, I loaded the wrong game. Oh, Pete, you're so silly. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll reload that. People's African Union is one of my favorite factions to play. Although their plus 10% growth while healthy inevitably means I'm kind of pushing on those health-related technologies early on because they get both tall and wide very, very quickly. And you have to spend a lot of time in manual specialist control making sure that the population's going in the direction you want. All right, so we're going to come in. This is another desert planet that we've landed on. This one, though, we've used Terran map type, which means it has continents, although they're of a very unusual shape. I believe I took an extra population in on this time to get up and running in Magan faster. And doing pretty well, all things considered. The scouts have been out and exploring for a little while. I've got some trade going, but I got very lucky in this game in that I had a station pop up near me called Adept Blue, and I'm going to show you why I like Adept Blue right now. This station gives me a random tech among those available to me when the trade route is complete. Now, just like in Civ 5 Brave New World, a trade route persists for a number of turns, and then it ends, and you either need to renew it or take that trade unit and assign it to a different place. But what happens is, with Adept Blue, for the 25 turns that trade is going on, when that's done, you get a tech. And that's kind of amazing if you think about it. And I'm going to show you how that has benefited the People's African Union in this game. So, whereas previously, Franco-Iberia had pretty much done habitation and then just some of genetics and ecology, you can see I was able to pick up all of the initial technologies as the result of those bonus techs trading with Adept Blue. So Adept Blue is very powerful. It's almost like a fire and forget technology branch that runs in parallel to you. And there are almost no bad choices. At worst, it's going to give you a tech that maybe you weren't going to pursue right now, but might prove to be valuable later on. Sometimes it gives you exactly what you want, exactly the tech that you were queued up to do the one after next, and that works out very, very well for you. Let me pop back to the map for a minute. In this case, we're pursuing much more of a harmony approach. Now, this is a purity approach. This is going to be a little bit tricky for us later on in the game, and the reason is Magan, as you can see, is hemmed in by this wall of mountains and canyons over here, and our growth has been pretty much shoved up against the coast here. That's not an ideal situation, but sometimes you get dealt with that. So I've taken my first settlement and I've moved it up here, where at least they have access to a different series of resources. In this case, there's some Firaxite that I intend to trade out later on. There's a little tiny floatstone deposit there. There's a much larger one here, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to culture my way out to it eventually. Worst comes to worst, at some point I may decide that strategic resource is more important to me than it is to Adept Blue, and I might even send a military expedition to take out that station later on in the game if I feel like that is necessary and I'm near where I want in my technology progress and I don't need that parallel technology path. But for right now, we're still kind of expanding. We're still kind of expanding a little bit. Again, I was talking earlier about the People's African Union. This is kind of hurting me a little bit right now. The fact that they're continuing to grow so quickly. The population in that city right now is 9, which is a little bit higher than I would like it to be. I'll show you the city itself and the buildings. Gene gardens and clinics are providing some health bonuses for that, but my virtue choices have largely gone in different categories. So I can tell right now that as my cities get bigger, I'm going to need to do some more to raise some health within the city itself. So let's look at the research options available to me now in Magan, or in the People's African Union. Now, not only do I have this quadrant we were looking at before, the alien sciences, terraforming, genetic design option. I could go to alien genetics. I could raise my purity affinity. Cognition, I'm going to be able to develop Firaxite fairly soon. That might be something worth looking at. But let's come over here and let's look at some of the other options that are available to me at this point. Organics. This is an interesting branch that is useful for raising production and energy, and in this case, mass digester is kind of cool because it's the building that you build on the edge of the tundra. If you've got a tundra city near some critical resource, petroleum, or maybe that 11 block of Firaxite that you want to get to, and you know that city's going to take a while to grow, mass digester is probably a pretty critical building to put into that. You also get additional energy from your generator improvements for doing that. And then under photo systems, there's the solar collector satellite, which we've shown you guys in the game, that beams energy down onto the tiles, and then all cities also get 20% bonus energy as well too. And then extra food from the plantation improvements. So very, very beneficial there, but maybe not critical for what I'm looking at right now. Over here we've got biology. The biofuel plant generates energy from algae, which is pretty cool, and it has some trader specialties right outside of Magan. So that might be pretty handy to have. The Grow Lab gives you additional food from fungus, but you've got to have level 4 in harmony in order to do it. And in this case, I don't have any workable fungus either. I thought I did. I guess it was the other save. But this is where you get the dome tile improvement. This raises the hit points for the nearby city, gives you additional culture, and again, Purity specializes in tacking lots of things onto the yields from the dome improvements. So for Purity, the dome ends up being a very, very valuable tile improvement. Domes and terrascapes abound when you play as Purity. And then farm improvements start to generate more energy and more food when you take the vertical farming leaf tech. So if I'm going to pursue Purity, I know I'm probably going to want to come down this path at this point. That might be pretty handy to have as well. Let's take a look at bionics over here. The bionics lab gives you production from resolin. It does require level 4 in purity. The Institute, that's 3 science specialists. We did talk about this earlier, and the biowell. That's where I'm leaning right now. I like having the ability to generate the biowells early on and then potentially go for servo machinery. Robotics, though, this is where you get access to the manufactory, the tile improvement that gives you all sorts of additional production. However, the trade-off about it is that it takes a lot of energy and it generates 2 units of unhealth. This is sort of to prevent it from being a runaway path to domination victory and the ability to spam manufactories across the environment and take over the world. But this is where you get the ability to build the Firaxite mine as well, as part of robotics. The auto plant gives you energy from international routes. Also has 2 engineer specialist spots and some additional engineers. Again, very useful for your manufacturing city. That's something you're going to want to take a look at. And the TAC jet. The TAC jet is the level 1 flyer. It upgrades to the needle jet, which will be a nod to another game that Firaxis made some time ago about settling an alien planet, if you remember that. But that's your basic tactical aircraft for defending your cities and shooting down other interceptors and things like that. Tactical robotics is where the Cinder is. This is Supremacy's first unique unit. It's pretty good. It does require the Firaxite. This is not a unit I've built a lot of in the game. I do know some players who make pretty effective use of them. I just tend to prefer, if I'm going to go very aggressive, I prefer to do it with Harmony rather than Supremacy. Mostly because Supremacy relies so heavily on the positioning of units, it's easier to put an ad hoc army together from Harmony, I think. Experienced players will no doubt be able to wield their armies with much more precision than I am. Swarm robotics is important. This is actually a key technology that you need if you're going to pursue the Transcendence victory for Harmony. So if you're a Harmony player, you're going for your Harmony technology victory, you're going to pass through this point at some point. But it does allow you to build the Drone Sphere. And the Drone Sphere is a world wonder with additional healing for military units, a surveillance web in the city where it's built, because the drones provide this 24/7 view of what's going on in it. And some science as well, too. You can think of it as the ultimate control center for distributed robotics and science. Mechatronics I don't have access to. Eventually, though, that will lead to the mobile Lev and the Lev tank, another Purity unique unit that's pretty handy to have. The Crawler is a world wonder, plus 25% production for wonders. That includes world wonders like the Warp Gates and the Mind Flower. So this is a wonder that leads to more wonders. Yo, dog. So you may want to look at that if you're thinking about going very heavily in that direction. The optical surgery. If you've ever wondered why our Supremacy leaders have glowing yellow eyes, it's because of this. It requires Firaxite, does boost health, and gives you additional health from silica. And this is consistent with kind of the Supremacy idea of taking whatever it is that a tile improvement does and just driving, like turbocharging it, making it more and more powerful. So, and in addition, there's the Lev plant. This is a big production booster for people who are pursuing purity. Really, really handy to have in terms of driving up the production in that city itself. Fabrication over here. This is where you're going to get your carriers for supporting your TAC jets. Ironically, you can actually build carriers sometimes before you build TAC jets, which is sort of amusing. The alloy foundry. If you've got a lot of titanium in your territory, it's a good way to generate production out of them. And it's got some engineer spots as well. And then the mag rail. This is an improvement over your typical planetary roads. That's very handy to have as well. Under computing, I haven't pursued the leaf text for computing because in this case, going heavily into purity and kind of thinking more along the lines that I'm going to pursue the Promised Land victory, I haven't felt the need to pursue transcendental math or autonomous systems. If I'm gifted transcendental math as a result of my communication with Adept Blue, I'm certainly not going to complain. That will open up that option to me without me having to devote my precious research time towards that. So I feel pretty good about that. Artificial intelligence, neat science over here. The Markov Eclipse is a world wonder that provides science, culture, and military boost as well. The Markov Eclipse being an elite core of humans who are trained to read tactile AIs much more efficiently than everybody else. Very cool world wonder. The surveillance web permanently reduces the intrigue in the city by 2. If I were way ahead on research, I would definitely want to plunk this in my science city. At worst, it would keep people from sort of leeching out science from it, maybe stealing a tech, but they wouldn't be able to set off a dirty bomb or flip that city. So very handy to have. And then the cell cradle, 4 artist special spots. This is, again, another supremacy tool for pursuing culture. Supremacy gets its culture in just the coolest ways. Synthetic thought, the Leaf Tech has access to the Cynosure, just a solid level of science. +7 science in a city is a tremendous amount. And then it allows an additional veterancy for military units. You can keep those military units around, they're going to persist, they're going to pick up extra veterancy. That's really fantastic. It also gives you access to the Saber, a ranged artillery platform. Supremacy, really, this is a pretty tough unit for supremacy. It's definitely not something I like to see coming towards me, and then we're going to try to disrupt as fast as possible. Swarm Intelligence down here, they get access to a wonder called the Bitegeist. And Dave McDonough, who's one of the 2 lead designers, described this to me once as the unholy union of Wikipedia and Google, which is pretty hilarious. It's this massive distributed cultural and scientific tool designed to connect people with their interests and use their kind of your spare time. Use your spare. Think of it as folding at home, but for all sciences. That's kind of the direction in which it goes. Very cool idea. Again, I believe this technology is required to construct the Mind Flower for the Harmony Tech Victory as well. Communications, this is important if you're going to pursue that contact victory, but also for pursuing both the Promised Land and the Emancipation Victory. The Array is a tile improvement that gives you extra orbital coverage around your cities. This is very tricky. You can actually use this you can build this, you can take advantage of that increased range, and then you can replace the tile improvement with something else, and that satellite's going to stay in orbit. Very handy. Feed Side Hub, another culture booster, and then additional science from trade routes. The command center is just a straight up buff for a city. Some people end up using cities as choke points, or use cities to help hold choke points on the map. This is something you would want to look at for that. And then the TACnet Hub. This is the satellite equivalent of the Great General. It's going to buff everybody who's underneath it and make them more effective, and then provide them with a little bit of a passive heal too, which is kind of cool. Orbital Networks provides you with the Network, which is another world wonder. Again, this is something that really drives culture forward. If you're the kind of player who likes to have a culture city, like I am, this is one that you aim for pretty well. And then the Lasercom satellite is required for the Emancipation and Promised Land victories. Okay, over here, terraforming. We touched on this a little bit earlier as well. So now I've got my choices. Well, let's pop back to the map for a minute because we spent a lot of time tool tipping through things, but let's look at the situation at hand. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Right, I've got a city that's starting to grow. It's going to need some help. I'm kind of pushing on health right now, so that's not ideal. Incidentally, there's a siege worm right here who has been causing problems for me in the course of this playthrough. He's sort of pinned now between these. I'm either going to have the option of building a bunch of military units to go after him, or I'm just going to have to learn to live with him in my backyard. I'm a little bit pressed on space right now, but I probably should use something that's going to increase health, at least for the time being. I might be able to build or buy it up in Ayan. With the way I've been building out my virtues in this game, bring them back up real quick. Yeah, I've got additional production towards wonders, additional energy. I could pick up this, the rest of Industry 1 here, industry tier 1. That might make things a little bit easier in this city. Ion up top, maybe for the future. So let's look at my technology choices again. Well, the advantage of picking up bionics would be, well, did I have improvable resilient? Yes. Oh no, that's chitin. Sorry, I have chitin, so maybe I don't. Maybe I wouldn't get a lot out of the bionics lab. That might not be the best thing in the world. The Institute would at least let me pull people off the tiles and buff up science instead. That might be kind of handy to have. Terraforming. I don't have any geothermal, and I don't have a floatstone quarry ready to go. I'm certainly not ready to build a terrascape quite yet. That maintenance cost would be too high right now. Robotics, would that be good? There's no workable Firaxite. That's kind of a bummer. Cognition? No. That's not. Social dynamics. What about this one? This is actually a late game tech, but let's take a look at this. 158 turns. That's probably not something I'm going to pick up right away. But it does have the Terravolt, which is a plus 15% culture for that. The Soma Distillery, straight up positive 4 health, 2 artist specialist spots, both health and culture. That's pretty handy to have. And the Civil Crush, food and grower spots. Again, something you'd want to pack in a city that doesn't have a lot of growable space around it itself. Human Idealism, the new Terran myth. This is a wonder that gives you 4 additional culture each turn. That's kind of a cool idea, something to aim for later on. Human Conservation, this is even better. This is something that's very purity specific, but plus 7 culture and 2 free virtues is pretty solid. That would be pretty handy to have. And then last week, we talked about the Human Hive as a wonder that could reduce the intrigue in a city. This is that wonder that does that, caps it by 4. Only very slight covert ops can occur within that itself. So I think for right now, my best choice, the Markov Eclipse, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go for bionics right now. Well, let me double check one last thing real quick. Oh gosh, I'll be in a position to get floatstone pretty soon. But that bio-well improvement and then the ability to move on to the battlesuit, I could use that battlesuit potentially to knock out the siege worm that's bugging me in my backyard. Still a while away from everybody. 3 scientist specialist spots, that'd be pretty handy to have. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose bionics this time around. All right, well, I guess I got my homework set up for me now. I need to see how this is going to play out. Odds are there's probably better choices I could have made, and that's the beauty of Civ, is you can always sort of go back and diagnose where you went wrong and see what you would do differently in the future. So, got a special announcement for next week's episode. We're going to do it at a different time. FiraxCon is next weekend, so we're going to have a live stream on Friday afternoon instead of Thursdays. So, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. European time. We're going to have our live stream. And we're going to have a special guest on it. I'm really happy to say that we're going to have Mad Jin on the show with us. Mad Jin, if you are a Civ player, you're probably familiar with his excellent Let's Play series. He's a fantastic strategy player. He's one of the most knowledgeable Civ players I know. He's a lot better than I am at this game. He'll no doubt tell you exactly what I did wrong this week. I hope he'll tell me what I did wrong this week and give me some tips for how to do better. So what Mad's going to do is he's going to go through and he's going to talk about strategies for each of the 8 factions. This is really fantastic. This is going to be a masterclass in Civ Beyond Earth, and I'm really excited to have somebody who's such a big fan and really knowledgeable about Beyond Earth on the show with us. I hope you'll tune in. I hope you'll bring your friends and come. But remember, it's next Friday, not next Thursday. So we'll keep putting that message out through our social media channels, through our Twitter accounts. If you've got questions you want Mad to talk about on air next week, start a forum thread at the 2K forums or at Civ Fanatics or whatever your home community of choice is. We keep an eye on them. We're listening to what you guys have to say on that. And Matt and I will do our best to address the ones that we can. We'll have Firaxicon after that, the weekend after this. I'm really excited about that. And I appreciate that you came today and watched our stream with us. I hope this was useful for you. I hope you liked what you saw about the technologies. Tune in next week when Madjin schools us all on how to use the 8 factions in Beyond Earth. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.